Hello, this is Michael Schillman, and I'm going to give you a whirlwind tour of Storybook 8.5. The main focus of the Storybook team has been the new Storybook Test product, which is providing blazing fast component testing in Storybook. What does that mean? Well, let's start with a quick example. Here I'm looking at a Note UI, and at the bottom of the screen here, I see a series of user interactions to interact with the UI, to save a note, to delete a note, and to assert various things along the way. This is a passing test, and we have UI for debugging that and so forth. This has been around in Storybook for a while. The main idea of Storybook Test is to make it really fast to run this across your entire Storybook from the CLI, in CI, also in the UI. So let's take a look at that. Down here in the left-hand corner, I have this Run Test button. I kick off a test run, and you can see that it's running 34 stories across the whole Storybook, and in just a few seconds, it's passed completely. This is something we added in Storybook 8.4, and in Storybook 8.5, we've added a couple new features to it. The first is watch mode, and so when I click on watch mode, it will basically watch my stories and my tests on my components. So as I'm editing my code, it will incrementally run just the stories that need to be run to verify that they're still working. So that's one nice feature. The second one is focus tests. So I can go in here and click on an individual component or story or an entire folder, and I can just run the tests from within that folder. And we saw that the two tests completed almost instantaneously. Okay, now let's take a look at accessibility testing, which is actually our headline feature for 8.5. Storybook has supported a limited form of accessibility testing for a while. The accessibility add-on is one of the most popular add-ons in Storybook, and it allows you to go through and story by story run a whole suite of tests to look for possible accessibility violations. In this particular story, we have one violation, which is a color contrast ratio issue, which is the offending element. Let's click on this checkbox, and we see that the preview button does not have high enough contrast, so somebody who has some vision impairment might not be able to distinguish it. Now, this is something that's been possible on an individual story for a long time, but thanks to Storybook Test, we can now run this across all of our stories. So if we go over back here to the testing module and we select accessibility, now when we click the play button, it'll go through and it'll run this across our entire Storybook. This means that when we fix accessibility errors, in this case we have quite a bit in the Storybook, but once we have solved them, we can guarantee that they stay solved, which is incredibly powerful. All right, that already feels like a lot for a minor release, but let's take a look at one more feature, which is coverage. Coverage means code coverage, and it is the lines of code that were executed by a particular test run. So if we go down here to the testing module and we enable coverage and we run our tests, this will take a little bit longer than just running the component tests alone, but what it's doing is it's measuring which lines, which branches, and so forth are getting tested when you run all of these stories. That is an indication of where you may need to add more tests, and so it took a little while to get started there, but in just a few seconds, we have our full coverage report here. It says we have 75% coverage, and when we click through, it'll show the detailed report here, and we can look by folder at individual components. We can see the statement coverage, the branch coverage, the function coverage, and the line coverage. So if we go in here and let's look at the least covered element here, which is, we don't have any tests for our loading screen. That should be easy enough to solve. So there you have it. And with Storybook 8.5 in a nutshell, we had watch mode, focus tests, accessibility tests, and code coverage, all in one beautiful package. Hope you enjoyed.